2 weeks ago, I'm in Toronto talking to a former student. 10% of the alumni are my former students. That means I got 20,000 people to talk to at any point in time. And what I'm trying to do is download their memories and their experiences to you. So why do I have anything to say useful about communications? I'm going to tell you what your predecessors in this institution have discovered, sometimes to their considerable aggravation. So, first thing they concluded was that those communication skills, if they don't have them, it is a barrier to the next step forward. Not necessarily the barrier to the job, but the barrier to the next step forward. And you should worry. Don't you want to worry about the next step forward? Don't worry about the next step forward. Look like you care about the next step forward. Stop worrying about just looking at me like you've got to just get through the next 12 and a half seconds. If you're doing exams, yes, the next 12 and a half seconds might be of some importance to you. So 2 weeks ago, I'm talking to one of my former students. He is a techie. He's a techie to the max, and he likes technology. He didn't choose technology because he makes big bucks. He chose technology because he loves a computer, and everything about a computer fascinates him. And so, of course, in today's world, he works. He has a good job. He's 10 years from graduation. He's making north of $100,000. Like, that's good money, right? Would you think? He's well regarded by his employer. Yes, he lives behind an acoustic barrier, but still in all, that's what techies do. So, they don't need a lot of human contact. So he just works behind, yes, well, you see, after a decade, he's discovering things. He's discovering, for instance, that one of his problems is that, all those problems they gave him in the beginning, which were so fascinating, been there, done that, not as interesting as they used to be. Not computing. Computing is even more interesting than he thought it was. But not the particular field as a techie he specialized in. So now he's got a problem. He still loves computing. He looks around for other aspects of computing that will be more interesting to him, more aggressive, more challenging. He finds them, decides he can train himself, does not rely on his employer to do it, takes his initiative. Doesn't that sound like a plan, right? That sounds like a plan to me, a good plan. But this new form of computing requires him to, and he wants this, to interact with the senior executives of a multi-billion-dollar organization because it's high profile, high priority kind of skill. And he hates speaking of any kind to more than his boss one-on-one. 2 people makes him nervous. 3 people makes him anxious. 4 people, this is him describing it, catatonic. So there it is. His ambition to take a step forward, wants to take a step forward, wants in fact to have some influence in his organization, wants to challenge himself more aggressively. And he's prepared to do it all, except the communication piece. He's so nervous he physically reacts when he has to speak. That is to say, perspires and shakes. That's like a physical reaction, don't you think? A little alarming when you were already in your 30s, looking like you're a frightened child when too many people look at you. So what did he do, ladies and gentlemen? So why did he say he wanted to have lunch with me? To ask for some desperate advice about how to learn to do communications? No, he didn't. Because he's 15 years from graduation. And we had a celebratory lunch. Because he executed his strategy. He was happier than he'd been before. He has influence in his organization. And he communicates. And how did he do it? 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 I hope you, because that danger that you face, that same dilemma, is actually fairly acute. You face it. He faced it. And he did 2 things, both of which we need to talk about. Well, one I simply need to note. We won't talk about it because I have nothing to say about it. Yes, there are some subjects on which I have nothing to say. Yes, believe it or not. He had courage. He had courage. He's got to put himself in situations of acute discomfort to him. He's got to move out of his comfort zone, however you want to express it. And it's the courage of, okay, I'm going to get over this fact that I shake like a leaf. I'm going to get over the fact that I mumble as soon as 3 or 4 people look at me. I'm just going to get over it. And how will he get over it? What's his magic recipe for getting over it? It's very complicated. That's why we're going to have to take 3 hours at least to explain how he did it. So sit back and relax. Oh, please. Complicated, not complicated at all. In your hearts, you already know what he must have done. You know what he must have done. You know what this person, first he has to have the courage to take action. He does. He's going to put himself in uncomfortable positions. He's got courage. But then what's the other second step of what he's going to do? It is like so important. It is so important. And you already implicitly know this. So I'm not bringing here some big news, exciting information to you. What I'm trying to do is take stuff you know that you push into the back of your head so it does not annoy you. And I'm going to try to find it in the back of your head and pull it into the front where you can't ignore it. At least for the minute, you can't ignore it. I'm trying to make it hard for you to ignore it in the future. So what did he do? What's the magic? What's the magic success? What's a magic success if you want to play tennis well? What's a magic success if you want to play the piano well? What's a magic success if you want to snowboard like a crazy person? What is the secret of it? What is the secret if you want to golf? Good walk in the woods ruined, but never mind. Some of you do find that, yes you do, you find that an attractive sport, allegedly. You know how you achieve excellence in something which is difficult to do. You practice, right? Practice, practice, practice. He got up, he made himself acutely uncomfortable, and he practiced. He practiced before his family. He practiced before his friends. He went to professional groups that do help in developing communication skills, and he practiced. He practiced till he could not practice anymore, and then practiced more. And then discovered this very interesting circumstance when he practiced, that each time it was a little less difficult than the time before. Each time he did it, it was less nerve-wracking than the time before. And then was that magic sweet moment when you're on a snowboard or when you're playing tennis, or that one time you hit that damn stupid golf ball and it goes exactly where you want it. Half that's luck, but it doesn't matter. You've practiced your brains out and you got the sweet taste of victory, and he thought, I can do this. And then, of course, he practiced with more ferocity than he practiced before. Practice, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to talk about a variety of aspects of communication as we move forward this afternoon. But unless you're prepared to practice, everything I'm going to speak about is of no value to you. Which is, it won't work. It won't work. Think about being a concert pianist. Think and think and think. And think. Even imagine how you might do it. Just don't touch the piano. And it's fantasy land. Takes time to practice. Yes, yes, and takes courage. I've nothing to say about that. I don't know where courage is. You find it. Just know you need it if this makes you uncomfortable. Am I uncomfortable right now? Because you're looking at me? Your big eyes all looking at me? No, I'm not uncomfortable. But I'm a shy country boy. I came from an environment, much less diverse than most of you in this room. And the shy country boy made also his transition by practicing. So I don't care whether don't tell me you're shy. Whoa, I don't care. Don't tell me you're introverted. Do you realize the world does not care if you're an introvert? The world does not care that you look at me with sad eyes and say, I'm kind of a quiet person. Well, I'm glad you're a thoughtful person, if that's what you mean by quiet. But, the world isn't going to allow you to be quiet, or they'll put you in a box back somewhere. And people will give you orders, usually contradictory orders. And then because you don't communicate, you can't even tell your bosses that you've been told to do 3 completely different things that you could not possibly do. And then they fire you because you didn't do one of them. It is the stuff of cuckoo-ness. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. So, if you're an introvert, okay, get over it. Or fake being an extrovert. You can be an introvert and still communicate properly, can you not? You can be the life of the party and still sound like an idiot when you open your mouth. So what we're trying to do is teach you a skill that you can acquire independent of whatever personality you have or think you have or might possibly have, or the personality you're working on. Since at your age, you're all works in progress anyway. So communication is a skill to be learned through practice. Different people started from different positions. Different people practice it with different styles. You're not going to imitate somebody else. You develop your own style. It has to be effective, but it's your own style. Some of you can speak standing still. I cannot. If I stand still, I'm sure there's nothing, a thought doesn't come. If I move and look like I'm advancing on you, whoa, I can think of 50 different things to say. So, but I mean, that doesn't mean you do it. It means you find out what is comfortable for you. How you get up and you feel comfortable in your own skin, but you do it through practice. And there's some very specific techniques you can learn. Very specific techniques. Sir, would you stand beside me, please? Yes, you? Don't worry. I'm not going to do something dumb. Just see now. See all those eyes looking at you. Like it is, I'll admit it's a little intimidating. First time I had to speak, I held on to the lectern in the front of the room because I was shaking so badly. Yes, so I've done all of that stuff. And so the first thing of someone who's going to do communication is all those eyes. I do not know why when you look out at a room, there seems to be like 1,000 eyes. There's not enough people in the room to produce 1,000 eyes, but unless you're comfortable speaking, it looks like a lot of eyes. Okay, now we're going to give you a simple technique of how you can make all those eyes disappear and begin to feel more comfortable. And it's a very simple technique. Look at him. So he's looking at you. You look back at him, and you know, it's not quite so spooky anymore, is it? See, you're looking at him, he's looking at you, but yeah, I'm checking you out, man. So don't you, well, but I'm serious, thank you. Seriously, the first thing you do is look at the faces in the room. It's not a mob. It's not a mob. Whether you pace, whether you don't pace, the first way is to actually recognize that, okay, they're looking at me, but I see that guy there with that strange shirt that I can't quite read on. So see, you're not anonymous in this room. The first thing the speaker does, a first thing a good speaker does, a first thing a comfortable speaker does is he individualizes his audience. This is not a mob here. There's some people taller than me. I'm glad they're seated because it annoys me they're taller than I am. So yeah, see, he knows, right? But that's the point. You're talking to a group of individuals, not a mob of people. And so if you feel occasionally, all these people looking at me, well, then what you do is look back at them. And you know, they don't look too bad. Some look interested, some look half asleep, doesn't matter. You've engaged them. You have to see the audience. The worst audience to speak to is where there's darkness and you're standing in the light and you cannot see the faces, because you can't see the eyes, and you can't make eye contact. And the first obstacle of communication stands between you and your audience. And when that happens, when the theater is dark and I can't see, then I have to be an actor. I have to imagine my audience. I have to imagine the faces. I've been in enough audiences so I can imagine a whole bunch of imaginary people. It usually works. My imagination is good enough. Occasionally it puts me off my game. So from your point of view, first thing you do is look at your audience, one-on-one. And it already becomes easier to do. Now, so we're going to practice. First thing we're going to do is notice, we're going to look in people's faces. We're going to see their eyes too, and keep an eye on them. Keep an eye on them. Keep an eye on that guy in the corner there, right? Just keep an eye on him, right? Keep an eye on all of you.